We're going to call the meeting to order, and Sandra, did we comply with the Open Meetings Act?
Yes, sir.
We complied with the Open Meetings Act. Jane, would you call the roll, please?
Chairman Potter,
Here.
Vice Chair Amos,
Here.
Secretary Putnam, Commissioner Hunter,
Here.
Commissioner Ray,
Here.
Commissioner Ritz,
Here.
Commissioner Conley.
Here. Okay, the minutes from the meeting from January 9th, 2019. Do I hear, or we have an approval for those?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Jane?
Vice Chair Amos,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter,
Aye.
Commissioner Ray,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Conley,
Aye.
Chairman Potter.
I'll abstain. Vic, Director's Report. Director Byrd.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here today. I'm going to make this, you're not going to believe it, I'm going to make this really quick, Commissioner Amos. You're going to appreciate it because we have a long presentation on our airport construction program since this will be our first time, I think, to present a 5-year, correct? Correct. Made a presentation to the two subcommittees of the legislature, both of them together. I can't really remember this in history where both of them came together at one time to hear from non-appropriated agencies such as us. Did that. Also made a presentation to the Senate Transportation Committee. That was the fastest ever, the story of the Aeronautics Commission. I think I did that in 7 minutes. I know that most of you are amazed by that, including you, Secretary Gatz, but I did that. February 5th, and as a matter of fact, this morning, we had another Aero Caucus meeting and breakfast. Senator Pugh, appreciate him. He has kind of reawakened that, reinvigorated it. The mission is just to ensure we have a public policy that will ensure the viability of our aerospace and aviation industry and airports. It's good to have that. We are the second largest industry, and according to Senator Pugh, the fastest growing, so I'm not going to dispute that. February 8th, the KC-46, I think all of you know, the training is going to be at Altus, the sustainment's going to be at Tinker, so it's great news for Oklahoma. Leading the delegation on the KC-46 off that landed in Altus was our senior senator, Senator Inhofe, joined by Senator Langford and Congressman Lucas. After all, Altus is in the 3rd District, and it was a really, really great day. A huge crowd. Cold, but Oklahoma was definitely celebrating the arrival of the KC-46. Last week was in Washington, D.C. for the NASAO, National Association of State Aviation Officials, Washington Conference, and visits with our delegation. Was able to see all of our delegation, either their aviation aerospace staff person or the congressman or senator himself or herself. And it was a good visit. I'm not going to go into substantive details about federal legislative issues, congressional issues. I will at our next commission meeting. But by and large, I think it was a very good week and very good visits with our delegation. Financial report, not going to do that this time in the interest of time. In your packet is what Jane's financial report would have been to you about our financial status. That is also available to any member of the public, anyone who's in the audience today attending the meeting. We certainly would make those available to you, but at our next meeting, we will go into more detail on the financial report. So, any questions, commissioners? Okay.
That was under 7 minutes.
Yep.
Good job.
Did it just for you.
I think you're up next.
I would ask for, we do this annually and have done it for a number of years. This year, we're actually upping the ante, so to speak. We'll have even a bigger footprint at the AUVSI Exponential Trade Show coming up at the end of April, and would ask for your approval. Unfortunately, it is at the same time as OAOA. I don't know if we're ever going to resolve that conflict, but I would ask for your approval for us to partner with Commerce and other partners, chambers as well as companies at AUVSI.
Do I hear a motion?
Approval. Second.
Jane?
Vice Chair Amos,
Aye.
Director Byrd.
This is a partnership, we are a member, but at the moment, I don't know, we're a member not in good standing, but we have not paid our dues to the Aerospace States Association. The primary representative from the state to the Aerospace States Association is Lieutenant Governor Pennell, and Lieutenant Governors in the past as well. We need to get current, and so the Department of Commerce and Aeronautics have agreed to pay, so the state is in good standing at the Aerospace States Association. Would ask for your approval to pay half the association dues.
So moved.
Second.
Jane?
Vice Chair Amos,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter,
Aye.
Commissioner Ray,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Conway,
Aye.
Chairman Potter,
Aye. Number 7.
Ask for your approval, Commissioners, for this is our, Sandra snuck, I was gonna make her do this, but she is, after all, Ms. Aero Oklahoma Day. This is for $1,000. Some of this will definitely be, perhaps all, but certainly some will be actually reimbursed from other sponsors we have arranged for Aero Oklahoma Day. That has grown, speaking of exponential, that's grown exponentially. This year we have 80-plus exhibitors, gonna have a career fair. We've got the entire Capitol on March the 19th, so certainly want to see all of you, and Sandra's gonna talk more about that, but would ask for your approval for up to $1,000 in meeting expenses for that day.
In the future, can we charge enough for booth exhibitor fees to make this thing turn a profit?
That, to turn a profit, I don't know who would get, to turn a profit, I don't know that would turn a profit, Commissioner, but last year we definitely was a break-even proposition. I think there was some money last year that did not come to us. It went to our helper, our conduit, if you will, that kind of handles the money. We keep it outside of us. That would happen again this year, the Air Force Association, but hopefully,
Brings in a couple of grand, then we're not out
Yeah.
of pocket anything.
yeah, and we, that is our objective this year, I think, and I think we'll end up there this year, but up front, I think we're gonna need this little small slice to pay our bills, and then I think the sponsor contributions will all come in, and we'll actually end up in the black.
Correct. You cannot profit from inventions like the capital.
Yeah, well, we can't.
No,
The state can recover 100%.
We can cover 100%, yes, yeah. Just can't profit, apparently.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Jane?
Vice Chair Amos,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter,
Aye.
Commissioner Ray,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Conway,
Aye.
Chairman Potter.
Aye. The thing we've been waiting on, the legislative update. Vic?
All right, Commissioners, first bill is Senate Bill 470. This was to remove the cap on our largest source of revenue, not responsible for 90+% of our revenue, the aircraft excise tax. And obviously, we'd like to, that is paid by our aircraft owners and pilots across the state to be used, to be invested back into aviation infrastructure. At this time, that bill is dormant. We're still working it. It could resurface, but at this time, it's dormant. House Bill 2099, not our initiative, but in a sense, an initiative that we are opposed to it. There was a companion bill, Senate Bill 397, that was not heard in the Senate. Senator Bice's committee, Finance Committee, did not hear that bill. 2099 is being run by Representative O'Donnell out of Tulsa, and for a charter operator up there. What we just did last year to put some integrity in this exemption, that if you're gonna put an aircraft owner or purchaser on a charter ticket to receive the exemption under our list of 18 exemptions, this being maybe the most used one, the aircraft at least had to walk like a duck occasionally. It had to be used for an actual charter operation. What we put in last year was what 24 of the other states require. 50% of the operations have to be charter. One state, Kentucky, requires exclusive. Maine is 2 years, and then it goes to 50% thereafter. 24 states do not allow for the exemption. We just got that passed last May. This is a bill to undo what we just accomplished after really advocating for this for 10 years, to put some integrity in it. It's an issue of fairness. When Devon and Quick Trip and Grondike are paying their aircraft excise tax, and ConocoPhillips in the past, Mr. Chairman, it's only, fair, and people like Governor Stitt too, paying their aircraft excise tax, you're entitled to an exemption if it's a valid, if it's valid. This was to put some validity, some accountability into this exemption. That's why we're opposed to it. It does not have the title, which is, that is a requirement before a bill can become a law. It did pass out of House Appropriations and Budget Committee last week. We are working it now to see if that could go away for this session. I have talked to some representatives this morning, and I'm hopeful that I don't think this bill will make it. We don't want to put any of our charter operators at a disadvantage, but one of the selling points being used is that Kansas is like we used to be, that it's just open-ended. I think the horse's mouth is the Kansas Department of Revenue on that issue, and they have advised us and sent us a form that, no, as a matter of fact, our proposition is exclusive. It's got to be exclusively used for charter for an aircraft purchaser to qualify for this exemption. So we're opposed to this bill. We'll continue to oppose it, and hopefully I'll have some good news for you at our next meeting in May. The next two bills are the military training airspace bills, if I could refer to them that way. This is simply to protect those military training routes from incompatible erection, construction of wind turbines. That bill, the Senate bill is without title. The House bill is with title. I think the House bill passed out unanimously. That's being run by Representative Ortega, Senate bill by Senator Pugh. This is not a zoning bill. It's not a permitting bill. It is simply transferring those requirements that have to do with protecting navigable airspace that are in the Wind Energy Development Act from the Corporation Commission to the Aeronautics Commission. I mean, we administer state zoning authority right now to protect airports, including the military airports. We have access to the tools and know how to use them that the FAA has to determine where, that turbine's going there. Have they gone through the federal aeronautical study, the process required in federal law? That's the basis of these bills, are simply to amend something that was passed last year. It is not an anti-wind bill in any way, shape, or form. It's just, we've got to have a balance. The two activities can take place compatibly, but we must protect this military training airspace, and there's been issues, frankly, and there were issues last summer with the development just west of Oklahoma City. Hopefully, these two bills will strike that balance, which is all we're after. I am personally for all forms of energy. That in itself is a national security issue, but I know this: if these bases and our Air Guard units don't have that military training airspace, we probably don't have those bases. That's the essence of those bases. So in a very lightest touch, this is the lightest touch possible, using the underlying federal process, which a developer, any developer, you, Chairman Potter, you go through in order to erect structures into the air. That's all you've got to show us that you went through that process and that you received the determination of no hazard or an approved mitigation plan, and that the concerns of the Department of Defense have been addressed. That's what those two bills are about. The House bill does have its title. Those will move to the floor soon, and we will keep you advised. The liability exemption for airport sponsors, to put something expressly in the Tort Claims Act about that, so that cities, primarily cities and the University of Oklahoma, would have a specific exemption for liability. That ran into some concerns from a couple of cities, and it's just, we've got a number of other things on the frying pan, so this is dormant. We're going to let it go. If the municipal league wants to pick it up in the future, that'll be the case. Are there any questions?
One, Vic, on the charter tax. It has passed out of the House.
It's passed out of the House committee
Okay.
without title, does not have title. So it could not become law right now. Title has to be restored. So it would have to get restored somewhere. House floor, over in the Senate, and
The Senate didn't.
Senate didn't entertain its bill, that had a companion bill over there. It did not get a hearing in committee. So I'm really hopeful that it was a very close vote in House A and B. I think it was 17-13. I've already talked to two representatives that would not vote that way today, and they're going to talk to the author. I think the author himself is not completely certain about this bill. It's very easy to kind of obfuscate and make this as gray as possible. The facts are pretty, there aren't alternative facts on this at all. The facts are pretty certain. They're black and white. 24 states don't provide for it at all. 26 states do. 25 of those states always had some standard. You had to have some level of operations that were actually charter. You had to walk like a duck. 2 of those states are exclusive propositions. We joined the states that require 50% of the operations to be charter last May. We've just recently dealt with this issue. So that's what it's about. I think the more we can get that information out, it's not really complicated. It's really, and it gets right down to it's an issue of taxpayer fairness. I think you pay your aircraft excise tax. So,
Pretty sure.
yep. Do I need to check that?
No.
I can't really.
I
so.
think it's been done.
Quick question about the next gen, and are they still on hold with the construction over in the Hinton Wind Farm?
I'll let, that is going through a very complicated process with the Attorney General's office, the Strategic Military Planning Commission, NextEra, to determine, and the Department of Defense Clearinghouse is very involved through the Military Planning Commission. They're going through kind of turbine by turbine. Those turbines that are cleared, they can proceed with construction. I think there are a number of turbines, perhaps as many as 100, that there are concerns that have not been alleviated or mitigated. Eventually, I think there's going to be a rather large number that the Department of Defense just objects to and submits that to the FAA. Then we'll see what happens from there.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question, Victor, on SB 304,
Mhm.
the drones over ag land, where's
Mhm.
that?
What's the status of it?
Yeah.
304, Senator Murdoch's bill.
It's alive, it's a live round, it's in the Senate chamber,
Does that have title?
it does have title.
Okay. There are concerns about that bill. It's waded right into the federalism issue about regulating the operation of drones and airspace. I think we're going to make some friendly suggestions to Senator Murdoch. We'll see what happens.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. 5-year airport construction program.
Morning,
Grayson?
Commissioners, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary. How's
Director
everybody doing
Byrd
this
went
morning?
very quickly.
Is this gonna be 7 minutes too?
I could tell you yes, but I would make myself a liar, Commissioner. I apologize for that. And
Start timing it.
Put him on the clock.
put me on the clock, that's right. And then I'll go in the penalty box afterwards when I run over. 5-year airport construction program. Comes March every year, we propose our draft airport construction program, what used to be our capital improvement program. This year, we are adding on 2 additional years, so usually it was always the 1 new year. This year, it'll be a total of 3 years because we have moved from a 3 to a 5-year program. And so, yes, I will try and go through this quickly, but I want to do it thoroughly as well. If there are any questions throughout, stop me on a project. We can go through it. As opposed to looking at your screens in front of you, you might want to go through the paper copy, and then I know the audience has the big TVs to see a little bit better. So with that being said, really the action item that we're asking today is to not approve these projects, but to move forward into the draft and public comment phase. So we'll put this out on the street for public comment, listen to what airports have to say, what the public has to say, and then we'll come back to you at the May meeting for approval of the airport construction program. Everything's gonna be here alphabetical order, so we'll just start with our first project up on the list. I'm not seeing the clicker. Ada Regional, this is a discretionary project. It's a 2024 construction. This is to rehab, a major rehab of the runway overlay and improve the safety area off the 3-6 end, the south end there. About $3.5 million, just shy of total project cost. This will be a 95-5 proposition, so 90% federal government, 5% OAC, and 5% local, with the NPE project funding the design the year before. Next slide. Ardmore Municipal, this is a basic rehab of their primary runway, that's 1331. This is just a joint seal and spall repair. This was a runway that was constructed out of the, is it the Opportunity Fund? Is that what it was called? Originally. And so it was, I think, 2008, 2009, and being concrete can last a little longer than asphalt, but it is due for a little rehab, so some joint seal spall repair. Project cost is just over $1.6 million. This is going to be a little bit more to get the project done. OAC is going to invest what we call supplemental above and beyond just our typical 5% for the federal projects to get the project done and make sure that it is a big runway, 9,000 feet by 150 foot wide. So this is a little bit more than just your standard concrete runway rehab. Alva Regional, this is a rehab of their parallel taxiway. Some of you might remember that this was actually the old runway. We moved the runway to the west, constructed it in concrete back in 2010. So the old runway is in repair. It's been converted into the taxiway, but we're gonna obviously remove some of the edge pavement that doesn't need to be there, put in lights, and rehab the pavement that's gonna remain as the parallel taxiway system. Total project cost a little over $2 million, and this is another one of those 95-5 propositions, 90% federal, 5% OAC, and 5% local cost. It's going to be a 2024 project, and it will involve FAA discretionary dollars. Oh. Nope. Going the wrong way.
It's not as easy as it looks.
Okay, there we go. Blackwell Tonkawa. This is and please stop me if you have questions or want to have further discussion on any of these. Blackwell Tonkawa, this is a rehab of the runway and a widening of the runway. So currently the aircraft, the critical aircraft that's out there is an agricultural aircraft. Requires a 75-foot wide runway. Right now it's at 60, so widening out to 75 feet and then overlaying the existing runway. Total project cost is a little over $2.1 million. This is again one of those 90%, 5%, 5% propositions. Project's going to be in 2022 for construction, 21 for design, and then that'll be a big help to that airport. I know that for a long time they've wanted an extension. It's much easier if they do have an extension in the next 10 to 20 years to go ahead and widen it out to standards as opposed to trying to widen and lengthen at the same time. Helps out with the cost principles. So this is kind of the foundational project for that. Next slide. This is a project at Clarence E. Page Municipal on the west side of town. Oklahoma City is the sponsor of the airport. A little over $1.5 million in total cost. This is a FAA state apportionment and NPE project. No discretionary in this, as we've talked in the past. It's very hard for our general aviation airports to compete for discretionary dollars on apron projects. There's probably only a handful of airports in the state on the GA side that would be able to compete for discretionary on an apron, maybe 5 to 6. Clarence E. Page. So we'll see a lot of these coming up in the next 5 to 10 years, where we're going to have to get innovative between the OAC monies, the NPE monies, the non-primary entitlement monies that an airport receives, and the state apportionment money that the state of Oklahoma gets from the FAA to do some of these apron rehabs and some of these reconstructs. So that's what this project is, reconstruct the portions of the apron you see highlighted there, a little over $1.5 million. Construction to occur in 2021, design the year before, and that's for that project. Next slide. Chickasha Municipal Airport, got two projects here. This is, again, one of those areas that, based on FAA's discretionary funding rules, we have to get a little innovative on. Yeah, we'd love to come out there and just do everything all at once on an airport, get in, get out, make life easier for the pilots, make life easier for the contractors, make life easier for us. Unfortunately, when you're trying to compete for those discretionary dollars on a regional and national basis, sometimes you have to break projects and split them out in terms of what they will compete and what they won't compete for. So this is going to be a lighting project to go out, rehab the runway lights, the PAPIs, the beacon, guidance signs, so on and so forth. This is a NPE and OAC project for about $750,000. Going to be a 2020 project for design and construct. And this will precede the following project, which will be on the next slide. And this is the rehab of the runway and the taxiway pavement. This is concrete pavement. It's fairly old concrete. I don't think it needs an extensive reconstruction, but there are some panels that need to be pulled. There's definitely some spalling and some corner breaks that need to be addressed. Obviously, the joint seal probably needs to be addressed as well. Total project cost a little over $2.1 million. This is one of those 95-5 propositions where 90% is being paid by FAA, 5% local, 5% OAC. Going to be a 2022 project for construction, designed the year before in 2021. But that's the Chickasha runway and taxiway rehab project. Next slide. Claremore Regional, this is again one of those apron projects that we're having to get a little inventive on. We have a portion, they have a big apron out at Claremore. I don't know if anybody's been to Claremore, but they have quite the large apron, more than probably what is justified. So we're looking at some innovative ways to address this particular project. They have a lot of good asphalt out there. There's probably 6 to 9 inches of asphalt on that apron, which is a good chunk of asphalt on good base for a GA airport. One of the things that we're trying to address is there's got some waves and some humps in the pavement out there. So maybe instead of actually milling and overlaying, maybe it just needs to be milled and put a crack seal on it to try and smooth everything out. That's going to be one of the things the design report will take a look at as to ways we can stretch our money as far as possible and hit as much of the apron that we can. So the green and red hashed areas is where we're going to be focusing on. That's the worst part of the apron. We won't be able to get all of it done, but we're going to try and get as much done as possible with the $1 million that we've proposed for this project. And again, this is one of those 90% FAA, 5% local, and 5% state projects occurring in 2023. Next project we have on the list is Clinton Regional. This is a runway overlay for the asphalt of the runway. A little over $2.8 million total project cost. Project's going to occur in 2023 for construction. Design being the year before in 2022. Again, this is one of those projects that's going to be 90% FAA, 5% local, 5% OAC. And if you see some of the numbers, you're wondering, well, why is local on this one, for example, higher than the commission when it's supposed to be 5% and 5%? When an NPE project is done the year before for design, that matches solely on the sponsor. So what you're seeing there is the 90-10 split from the year before for design. So this is just the overall project cost picture that you have in front of you right here. And so that's why you'll see the local and the commission shares being a little bit different on some of these when we do design the year before construction. Next slide. Clinton Regional Airport, this is a mill and overlay of their main apron. Again, this is one of those innovative projects that we're trying to do on aprons where discretionary money does not compete. About $500,000. We were out there probably about 7 or 8 years ago, did a micro surface on the apron, and we did some full depth patching and full depth repairs. It worked, but there was some FOD that was left behind, and some of the aggregate of the microsurface didn't work as we wanted it to. So we've left it as it is. The airport's tried to sweep up as much as possible for the time being, but we are due to go back out there and do what would be the actual repair that needs to be done, and that is milling off a couple inches and probably putting a couple inches back on the apron area. And this will occur in 2021. Elk City. So this is continuing on with our lighting and electrical rehabs across the state that we've discussed in the past. I've been trying to add in about 2 to 3 electrical projects a year. As you all know, we've done a really good job in the last decade and a half of making sure our pavement's in good shape, making sure we're meeting FAA standards. Obviously, when you focus on one area, another area tends to slide off a little bit. And one of those areas that slid off a little bit was the electrical side. So now we're trying to focus on the electrical side of the house and get those old lights that have been in the ground since the 70s, 80s, and 90s, get those repaired and get those up to working in operable condition where an airport may not have a electrical contractor come out there and tell them their lighting system is defunct and now you're basically a daytime VFR only airport. So we want to get ahead of that power curve when it comes to making sure that lighting systems at airports are maintained to a high standard. So this is a FAA, NPE, and OAC Commission partnership project. You'll see several of these throughout the ACP where the airport sponsors bring in a couple $100,000 to the table of their NPE money. OAC is bringing a couple $100,000 of state money to the table. We're combining forces and we're trying to get this project done at one time and hit as many electrical, or you'll see some pavement projects like this as well, hit as many of those items as possible before going down the road and going to the next airport. This will be a 2021 project. Total cost is about $850,000. Enid Woodring Regional Airport. This is the reconstruction of runway 1331. This is their crosswind runway. It will be narrowed. It's an odd width right now. I think it's 107 or 106 feet wide. It'll be narrowed down to the standard 75-foot width. And this is time. This is one of those runways where we have put the Band-Aid on it as many times as we possibly could, and putting another Band-Aid on it would not be a wise investment of taxpayer resources. So we do believe it's needs to be done. And I think we've talked about crosswind runways in the past. Crosswind runways are definitely a more important item west of 35 when we get some of those different winds, some of those northwest or southwest winds that pilots, especially the smaller aircraft, even some of the bigger aircraft. I know an example of, I think it was Grondike Citation. The crosswind component was so strong on the primary runway, they couldn't get in a couple of days out of a year, 1 year. And so they actually were able to land, even though this is only a 3,200-foot runway, they're able to land their, I think it was a Sovereign at the time, able to land a Sovereign on there. And so it's important to have some of these crosswinds when it comes to airports west of 35. East of 35, we have to take a little harder look at the crosswind runways because the wind components aren't nearly as bad in terms of what's occurring in western Oklahoma. Total project cost here, $1.6 million. Again, this is non-discretionary because it is a crosswind runway. It'll be state apportionment and NPE project, and it'll be a 90% FAA, 5% local, 5% OAC. Next slide. El Reno, this is a concrete runway rehab. This is one of the runways that was reconstructed and extended back in the early 2000s, so it is due for a little TLC, a little joint seal and spall repair. Project's going to be in 2021. Total project cost will be about $600,000, and this will be a 95-5 proposition between the commission and the airport sponsor. Next slide. Fairview Municipal, this is a phase 2 of their parallel taxiway system. Runway was widened and extended about 4, maybe 5 years ago. They've seen a significant uptick in traffic over that time period. We are currently undertaking phase 1 of the parallel taxiway reconstruction extension, and that's the south portion, so from the apron to the south. What you see there in the red is from the apron to the north. This will be a discretionary project, a little over $2.1 million, construction to occur in 23 with design to occur the year before. And this will be the 90% FAA, 5% local, 5% OAC. Next slide. Grove Municipal. This is going to be a rehab of their runway pavement as well as the electrical system. Show a construction of the ODO in 22 with design to occur the year before in 21. Total project cost a little over $3 million. This will involve the FAA discretionary money because it is a runway, and it will be the typical 90% FAA, 5% local, 5% OAC cost for this particular project. Hobart in southwest Oklahoma. This is just a runway, basic runway rehab, crack seal, seal coat. It's been, I don't know, probably about 8 or 9 years since the last time we were able to address this pavement, so it's due, a little overdue probably, by the time we get out there. and total project cost will be $300,000. Going to be a 95-5 split, standard commission local sponsor ratios, occurring in year 2021, design and construct. McCurtain County Regional down in Idabel, Oklahoma. This is going to be to rehab the AWAS, design and construct in 2020 for about $150,000. This will be, you'll remember the Watonga project that we did last year where the airport came to us and asked, look, we don't know if we're going to meet the BCA cost ratio on justifying the replacement AWAS that the FAA has put in place. So instead of doing that, we might ship our NPE money off to another airport and state, can you come in and with state money replace this AWAS? Again, I believe this is saving us about $30,000 to $40,000 of funding, not having to go through the BCA process that may not be proved at the end of the day, which would mean that the $30,000 or $40,000 wouldn't be the standard 90-10 split that they would do on an FAA grant. It would be 100% locally funded, and most sponsors can't take on that kind of risk up front, knowing that they may or may be on the hook for $30,000 or $40,000. Another project at McCurtain County Regional in Idabel, Oklahoma. This is a rehab of the runway, an overlay of runway 220. I think that's the only 220 runway we have in the great state of Oklahoma. Project's going to be in 2022, designed to occur the year before in 2021. Total project cost a little over $3.1 million. This will be one of those 90% FAA, 5% local, 5% OAC projects. And it's been about, by the time the project happens, it'll have been about 22, 23 years since that runway was last reconstructed. So it's due for some major rehab at that point. South Grand Lake Regional Airport in Ketchum, Oklahoma. This is on the west side of Grand Lake. This is an airport that I think everyone here is familiar with, an up-and-coming airport that started off as a grass strip pre-2007. Has turned into a 5,000-foot paved runway with 25-plus based aircraft, several jets included in that. We have a project scheduled this year for a widening and an overlay of the existing runway. And with the increased traffic, especially some of the jet traffic and the King Air traffic, it's important to try and get a parallel taxiway out there to help deconflict some of the traffic at the airport, especially during the busy lake season. We don't like to have the heavy metal out there back taxiing on the runway if possible. So total project cost a little under $5 million. This is going to be a 2023 project, designed the year before in 2022. And again, this is the 90% FAA, 5% local, and 5% OAC. Next slide. Yes, South Grand Lake. Yeah, next slide. Okay. McAllister. So you'll see, continuing on with tradition, we've had a terminal building in every year of the airport construction program, and continuing that as a really front door for the community when it comes to business and attracting people. We want to have a good front door. Yes, it's good to have good pavement, good lights, but at the end of the day, if you have the best pavement in the world, the best lights and the best safety areas, and the business executive comes in to see a shack at the community, that's not going to have a really good first impression for that airport. So this one is for 2024, McAllister Regional Airport, to rehab this terminal building for a cost of $1.5 million. And the commission share, the OAC share, is capped at $500,000 for that. Miami Regional Airport. This was a project that we just talked about. I was up in Miami with our airport engineer about 2-3 weeks ago. They have a parallel taxiway that's at a non-standard separation from the runway. It is not at the end of its useful life. So that's one of the things that we've addressed back in the mid to early 2000s was when taxiway pavement or when runway pavement that's non-standard becomes the end of its useful life, then we reconstruct it. But we don't want to reconstruct it too soon because that wouldn't be a wise investment of the limited dollars that we do have. So what we're trying to do here is we're going to go out and we're going to rehab the taxiway. While we're on site, we're going to rehab the runway as well. But rehab the taxiway is the primary portion of that project to try and get us down the road for another 6 to 10 years, get that last little bit of life out of the pavement before we reconstruct it and move it to standard. You'll see there on the north end of the runway, that north 1,500 feet of the taxiway, that is to standards. The red part on the south is not to standards, so that's where it would move out to So this is one of those, okay, we're looking at the 10-year view of the airport. What's going to happen in the next 10 years? Let's rehab it, basic rehab today, and then 7 to 10 years from now, we'll go out and reconstruct it fully. Total project cost about $500,000. FAA share coming from the NPE side at $225,000, commission share at about $237,000, and the local share at $37,500. This is a project at Mid-America Industrial Airport in Pryor, Oklahoma. They have about 75% of their parallel taxiway. This was a project that was already in the commission's ACP, CIP, when it was the CIP. We're simply moving this forward a year. We talked to FAA. They had some discretionary money available. We're moving it forward from 21 to 20. So just moving everything forward a year. Project costs still staying the same at about $2.1 million. Muskogee Davis Regional Airport. Here is going to be a rehab of the electrical system. We've done a pretty good job of rehabbing the runway pavements over the last couple of years. Rehab the 422, the crosswind. Just finished up the primary crack seal coat last year. And now the electrical system needs to be addressed. This is one of those electrical projects that's been out there for a while, I think since the 80s, maybe early 90s. Total project cost about a little over $2.1 million. This will be a discretionary project because it is a primary runway and it is electrical, so it does compete for discretionary. We expect it to. Be about the 90%, 5%, 5% rule. Construction to occur in 2024 with design to occur the year before that in 2023. And not only will it be the runway lights, but it'll be the PAPIs, the beacon, the vault, and the home run as well. Max Westheimer Airport in Norman. This is a new project that we hope will compete like we've never done before. I don't think we've ever done a contract tower reconstruction in the state of Oklahoma, so we are stepping on new ground here. Thanks to our congressional delegation for adding in a couple of provisions in the FAA reauthorization bill. Before the FAA passed their bill, the only way you could reconstruct or put forth a rehab with federal dollars for a contract tower was we had to do it with entitlements. Well, we know an airport only gets $150,000 of entitlements a year. The state gets $3.8 million of entitlements a year. To redo a tower, you'd basically have to soak up the state's state apportionment for at least a full year, if not maybe full 2 years, to be able to do this. And that really just doesn't work when you're building a tower to try and phase that into 2 different phases. So what happened in the FAA reauth bill is that there's a small airport fund. So there's money that big, medium, and large hub airports, they get entitlements just like the small GA airports get entitlements. But a lot of times those airports turn those entitlements away because they're more concerned about their passenger facility or their PFC funding, which is the ticket tax that you see, the $4.50 that's on every ticket that when you go through the airport, you pay your passenger facility charge. So the give back entitlements that those airports give back goes into something called the Small Airport Fund. Previously, it was your standard projects that would compete for the Small Airport Fund, which is known as discretionary, the Small Airport Fund Discretionary Fund. Your runways, your taxiways, and your higher priority projects. What was inserted into the FAA bill was now towers would be able to compete for that discretionary. So we've opened up discretionary for contract towers. And being that Westheimer, I believe, is the oldest tower in the state, probably one of the most in-need towers in the state, we're going to put forth Westheimer to try and compete for some of that discretionary before the FAA bill runs out. I don't see any reason why Congress wouldn't continue that Small Airport Fund competition for tower and discretionary money, but we want to try and get in the FAA bill runs through 2023. So that's what this project is for. Construction in 23, design the year before. Total project cost a little over $5.1 million. This is a new area. We are going to try and do some planning. So we might come back to you sometime later this year once we have an idea, okay, what does the planning or what does the preliminary engineering report look like on a tower? We've never done one before. I know Texas has, and we're trying to learn from Texas on how they've done them in the past. So we're walking through this. It'll be new. It'll be interesting. But I think at the end of the day, it'll be good for Westheimer. And there's also the potential that we're looking at the concept of maybe a remote tower, too. That's an option to consider out there, is not only having a physically structured man tower, but instead of doing that, maybe doing a remote tower concept, which I know is being tested around the country right now. So look forward to that. This will be an interesting project I'm sure we'll all want to take watch on.
Grayson, let me, This will be the only time, Commissioners, we ever learn anything from Texas. It's somewhat ironic, we're learning it about OU Westheimer Airport, but the cap was removed here too, wasn't it? Wasn't there a $2.5 million cap previously
Yep.
until
Yep.
this?
And it was
And our delegation did really work hard on, because 6 of our towers are part of the federal contract tower program. Y'all remember that from 2013, when those 6 were gonna close, and we were right out there leading to make sure those didn't close. So this was a good result through our delegation being really plugged in on this issue.
This is also at the Max Westheimer Airport, Phase 2 of their parallel taxiway rehab. Currently in 2019, they plan to do Phase 1, which is the parallel taxiway system to 1836. This is going to be for runway 321. This will occur in '24. Depending on what happens with the tower, this project might move around a little bit. But if the tower stays in '23, we're proposing the parallel taxiway system in '24. Project costs a little over $5 million. And again, this is the 95-5 split that we've talked about before, with design to occur the year before in '23. Perry Municipal Airport. This is a nice airport in north central Oklahoma. We were able to overlay this runway going back 7-8 years ago, and again, it's just due for some rehab. This could be basic crash seal coat to occur in 2022. Total project cost about $300,000 with a 95-5 split for the standard commission ratio. Ponca City Regional Airport, this project and the next project that you'll see up there are kind of in a combined in together. If any of you have been to Enrique's, you know that there's no real apron in front of the terminal building like you see at most GA airports. Usually you have terminal, apron, parallel taxiway, runway in terms of your linear progression. But here the apron's off to the side on the south a little bit, and then there's another apron significantly off to the north of where the terminal is. That was all due to a major project back in the early to mid-2000s to move the parallel taxiway systems to meet standards, and so for that did away with the existing apron that was right in front of the terminal building. The overall project is broken into 2 phases. One's the pavement, the apron expansion, but also the next project you'll see on the next slide is going to be for the rehab of the terminal building and putting in a new terminal building. Now this will be a big one. This will be very similar to the Enid Woodring terminal building, where we kicked in our $500,000, but the city of Enid came up with about $2.1 or $2.3 million of their local share, because this does involve obviously a restaurant, Enrique's, that we all, some of us know and love. At the end of the day, though, we believe that the city can do it, and we'll be in discussions with them over the next couple of years to make sure that they can. But this is a 2023 for both the apron and the terminal. The apron project, about $1.5 million total cost. This will be a 95-5 split with federal monies, with the NPE money that the airport has, but also state apportionment money, because again, this is one of those that does not compete for discretionary on apron, especially on an apron expansion. Definitely won't compete on an apron expansion for discretionary dollars. Next slide. And then here's the terminal building, just based on what Enid had built, about $2.5 million, we think, because that's obviously being driven a lot by the restaurant. $500,000 of the commission share being the max, with $2.2 million of local money for a total project cost of $2.5 to also occur in 2023. Again, if the airport doesn't feel like it, or the local entity doesn't feel like it can't do that, then we'll have to go back to the drawing board and determine, okay, what are some ways to try and address both the apron issue but also the terminal building issue. POTO, Robert S. Kerr out in eastern Oklahoma. It's a runway extension. This is, you always hear us talk about the 43 regional business airports that have jet-capable runways. That means there's 6 of the remaining that don't have jet-capable runways. This is probably the next one on the list that is justifiable, can meet the justification criteria to extend out to 5,000 feet. Right now it's a 4,000-foot runway. This project is to extend the runway out there and also rehab the existing pavement. Total project cost just over $5.2 million, and the reason you see the commission share significantly more than the local is that OAC would pay for the rehab of the existing, so that'd be at the 95-5 split, whereas the extension part of the project would be at the 90 FAA 5% local 5% OAC. To occur in '23, designed to occur the year before in 2022. And I think this will be, there will, and to answer, I'm sure the question will come up, will all 6 of the non-jet capable airports out there in the regional business airport system get jet capable runways? Probably not. There'll probably be some that won't ever be able to justify it, or maybe have some issues with terrain or other circumstances on the ground where they won't be able to get to a 5,000-foot runway. So I think there's probably a couple beyond POTO that can make it, but we probably won't all get to 49 of the 49 being jet capable. Salisaw, this is one of those combined OAC and FAA NPE projects. The NPE money is going for the electrical side of the house to rehab the runway lights, the windsock, and the electrical vault, and the OAC money going out there to rehab the taxiway pavement, just a basic crack seal and seal coat. Total project cost a little over $600,000. FAA share about $325,000. Commission share about $237,000, with the local shares for those matches about just shy of $49,000. Sand Springs, William R. Pogue Municipal Airport, they're on the west side of Tulsa. Need to rehab the runway and rehab the west parallel taxiway. This is one of those unique projects, in unique airports. I think one of the few airports in the state that has a double parallel, both on the east and the west side of the airport. I don't know what the reasoning for that was back in the day when it was built. It was before my time, but one of the concerns when it comes to doing major rehabs of the west parallel taxiway that FAA has expressed is how much use is the west parallel getting? Because if it needs to, if it needs a $2 or $3 million reconstruct or a $2 to $3 million rehab, is that going to compete when it has a double parallel and most of the activities on the east side of the airport? So we want to maintain the west side parallel in the event that activity does pick up over there. And that's what this project is to do, is to rehab that west side parallel, but just a crack seal and a seal coat, and then also rehab the runway while the contractors are on site so we can get some better bid prices. Total project cost about $600,000. FAA NPE about $270,000, commission about $285,000, and then the local match about $45,000 for this particular project. Seminole Municipal Airport. This is a big upcoming project. This is one of those parallel taxiway realignments to meet FAA standards project. We have several projects in the ACP right now to help prep for this project. As you can see in a lot of the hatched area of stuff that has to go away on that picture, 1, 2, 3, looks like we got 4 hangar buildings that would have to go away. And so some of the precursor projects leading up to this is relocating those hangars to the north side of the airport so that the parallel taxiway can go through there and meet the FAA standards. The green is the FAA standards separation right there at 240 feet. Total project cost a little over $3.5 million. This will be an FAA discretionary project because it is meeting FAA standards. It'll be the standard 90 FAA, 5 OAC, 5 sponsor share to occur in 2024 with NP to occur the year before in 2023.
Grayson, are any of those hangars occupied by Enviro Systems right now?
No, sir. No, those are all private entities that have their own airplanes. The project won't impact Enviro Systems building. It may impact a little bit of their parking lot based on the retaining wall that we would have to build because there's a significant, I don't know if anybody's been to Seminole, there's a significant drop off in the elevation there at that end of the runway. So, Stigler Regional Airport. This is one of those partnership projects, OAC money, FAA NPE money that the airport has to go out and do, again, another electrical project. Install LED runway lights, the PAPIs, the windsock, and rehabilitate the AWAS that's out there. A little over $800,000 of total project cost, a little over $400,000 on the FAA share, a little over $350,000 from the commission, and local about $44,000. This project to occur in 2022 with design to be the year before in 2021. And another project at Stigler. This airport is an up and coming. They have been growing for quite some time. They have a very interested local sponsor too, somebody that's very forward thinking out there at the airport, really wanting to invest in the airport. This is to construct the parallel taxiway system for the airport to occur in 2024, designed to occur the year before. Total project cost a little over $2.1 million. This is going to be the 90% FAA, 5% local, 5% OAC project. One thing on this particular project, it is the turf work, or most of the turf work, has already been done for the airport, and so really all that needs to be done here is to go out, stabilize the base, and put the pavement down on the existing built-up berms. Next slide. This is a R.L. Jones project. This is one that we actually had proposed last year at the R.L. Jones Airport. Unfortunately, FAA said we need a little bit more time to study how the connector taxiway systems on the primary runway would look. We've, in years past, done the rehab of the primary runway. We've done rehab of the primary parallel taxiway, but we've left alone the connectors because of some of the non-standard areas. They have some massive expanses of pavement. They have some high-speed taxiways that don't conform to standards. And I think you all know this is the busiest airport in the state and has ranked up there as one of the busiest airports in the country for many years. Those high-speed taxiways are important to get airplanes off that runway as quickly as possible because they're moving through students very quickly at high times. So we're going to go in with a planning study or a preliminary engineering report, try to do that this year, make a determination, okay, what is the final layout of the connector taxiway is going to look like. And total project cost for this, about $3.1 million. This is going to be a 95-5 split. And it's going to occur in 2022 with design to occur the year before in 2021. This will be an interesting one because it's probably the only GA airport in the state that would ever be able to justify or have a high-speed exit taxiway. So another one of those unique projects that we'll get to go through, and it'll be interesting and exciting to see the final layout. Watonga, this was another one that, along with R.L. Jones, had to get pushed back to 2022 based on available discretionary funding. So this is just a reconstruct of their primary runway. Total project cost a little over $2.1 million. This is going to be one of those 90% FAA, 5% local, 5% OAC projects to occur in 2022 with design to occur the year before in 2021. Next slide. At the Thomas P. Stafford Airport in Weatherford, Oklahoma, this is a rehab the AWAS. This is very similar to the Idabel situation we just spoke about to occur in 2020. Total project cost about $150,000. It'll be the 95-5 split between OAC and the sponsor. West Woodward, this is the last of the 3 terminal buildings that we're proposing. 2022 construction for the terminal building, and commission share capped at $500,000, local bringing in about $1 million. We expect most of our terminal buildings we're starting to see with the increases of materials and increased price of design and construction. We're not getting to see the $1 million terminal building anymore. It's getting to be close to 1.2 to 1.3 and probably closer to 1.5 for just your standard GA terminal building that we've built in years past. So, Wiley Post Airport in Oklahoma City. This is a standards project to widen the secondary runway out. Right now it's a 75-foot wide runway, to widen that out to 100 foot based on the traffic that's out there. I know Wiley Post is going through a master planning study right now to try and get that justified and completed to show the FAA, look, we can get discretionary dollars out there. Total project cost about $4.1 million. This will be one of those 95-5, 90% FAA, 5% local, 5% OAC. To occur in 2023 with design to occur the year before in 2022. I think one of the things that we'll have to see here is the safety area. So when we go from 60-foot wide runway to 75-foot runway, the safety area expands, but when we go from 75-foot wide runway to 100-foot wide runway, the safety area really expands. So that's one of the situations we're gonna have to look at is, okay, how do we mitigate the safety area impacts for expanding that runway? And anytime we have an extension or a widening, that is one of the things that we take into consideration is, okay, those safety areas, those areas are expanding. How do we address that in the project while also keeping the cost as low as possible? Next slide. That's it? Okay. So with that being said, that is our proposed ACP for the 20 to 24 time period. I'll stand for any questions. Like I said, right now we're asking for move to approve to move into the public comment phase so that we can put this on the street. And we'll come back to you at the May meeting with any changes, additions, subtractions to the ACP, and request your formal approval for our planning and programming guide to help guide us for the next 5 years here at the commission.
Move to approve.
Second.
Mr. Chair, just a couple of questions. I'd rather prefer to ask them before you vote, before you take a vote, and comments. Grayson, I noticed that our construction program is FY20 through FY24. The actual projects say, I think, calendar year. Kind of explain that a little bit.
Well, for the calendar year, what we really want to try and show you is, okay, we know the fiscal year, but really what people want to know is when's the work going to happen? And so we try and correlate the calendar year with the actual work occurring. Just for reference here, you may have a FY, right now we're in FY 2019 federal fiscal year cycle. We may get an FY 2019 grant, but it probably won't start construction, especially if it's a discretionary project, until next calendar year. Because of the way the constructability season works, we don't get the grant funds until the very end of the federal fiscal year, which is usually third or fourth week in September. By the time everybody gets the contract signed, grant agreement signed, you're looking at maybe a start of November. And if it's still, and especially with asphalt, they're probably going to kick construction until the next calendar year. So that's one of the things we wanted to show you all here is, okay, here's when we expect the different projects to actually be turning dirt.
Just a couple of highlights, Commissioners. Fairview, and Grayson, please elaborate on this. That's a real success story, right? They put in, the extension was how much, just several years back?
It was probably just shy of $2 million. And it was kind of one of those, I don't know, FAA came up with 70, OAC came up with 15, sponsor came up with 15, one of those kind of propositions.
Yeah, had great support of the former speaker, Speaker Hickman from out there, and the local users of the airport really came together and I think chipped in as well to come up with the local contribution. Mid-America, we've met with the executive director. That's, some of you know, that's Google's out there, and he really wants to utilize the airport is a great asset. Does he have some other plans that he's kind of talked about out there for the airport?
Yes, obviously extension's the big one on his mind. Because of Google and other companies they're trying to attract out there are wanting to bring in some pretty heavy iron. And so extension, widening are definitely projects probably on that 5 to 10 year horizon for the airport as they get more and more businesses to the industrial park.
Yeah, there's even some technical training going on out there. I think a partnership between 1 or 2 local career techs and I want to say Northeastern or maybe, I can't remember the other, but maybe Rogers State as well, training of various, training education for various industries. Perry, any impact? Do we know of anything that, know that Ditch Witch recently sold to Toro? Is that going to have any that we know of, or just right now we're still speculating?
We're speculating, but I have a feeling that they will probably no longer be flying out of Perry, unfortunately.
Ditch Witch?
Yeah.
Sell or move the aircraft?
That's what the rumors that I'm hearing.
Commissioners, this is a long Commissioner Amos would remember, we would precede this presentation with a committee. There was a capital improvement program committee. What we encountered was that we would do this at the committee, and then airport constituents, et cetera, they would would like to hear the whole thing again at the commission meeting. So we were kind of doing double time, wasn't exactly efficient, so we just decided we're going to present all this, let's present it at the commission. We did that a number of years ago. Of course, if you had a different feeling about that, we could go back to the committee structure. And one thing, I know at times we ourselves get confused. The pots of federal funds through the FAA Airport Improvement Program. You hear Grayson use the term apportionment funds. That's kind of our basic amount of money that comes through the formula that's in the FAA Airport Improvement Program statutes. I think we'll set aside a separate item at a future commission meeting so we can talk to you about what is apportionment, what is discretionary, what is non-primary entitlement, and even though we don't deal with this much, it has an impact. Grayson explained that today. passenger facility charges, which is something that commercial service airports for years have been trying to get those, the cap on those, if you will, raised, and have not been successful in that. There's been quite a debate and a fight between the airport industry, commercial service airport industry, and the airlines. But I think we'll set that aside and have so you all can understand exactly what are these funds, how much are they on average, or how much are they for this year? And we talk about non-primary a lot, and talk to you a little bit more about that.
Okay, any other questions? Anybody? We have a motion, we have a second. Jane?
Vice Chair Amos,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter,
Aye.
Commissioner Ray,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Conway,
Aye.
Chairman Potter.
Aye. Thank you, Grayson. Aero Oklahoma, Sandra?
Good morning, Commissioners. Aero Oklahoma Day is 2 weeks from today, and it's a really important day. I know that the Commission has been doing this at the Capitol for a long time, and we have reached out to 32,000 people through social media, and we have about 800 people who have indicated that they are either considering to attend or to attend, and I have about 400 registered guests, and I'm a little bit scared, but it's going to be okay. Jane keeps telling me it's going to be okay, and everybody else.
Of course, she's got annual leave that week, but.
Yeah. I'm actually going to be in Hawaii with Dr. Conway and his lovely wife Kathy. No, I'm not. Okay.
No, you're not.
But everyone has homework, including, and I want to tell you this is a total team effort. Could not do it without the staff, Grayson. Everybody has an assignment. And so, Commissioners, you also have an assignment, Dr. Conway. I would love for you to reach out to Durant and make sure that your colleagues from Durant, they are exhibiting. I need all the people I can get, students included. And Commissioner Ritz, we need you to reach out to your friends at the Monroney Center. I see Craig Smith back there, and I know that the Monroney Center is exhibiting, but we need Director Coppage to come out, and we need as many folks as we can. And Commissioner Amos, need those folks from Wiley Post to come out, and I see Christy Slater is here, and I'm sure Christy and her team will be out there as well. And we need people from Bartlesville, and I need you to email everybody in the western side of the state, Commissioner Ray. And I know Sundance will also be there too. And Secretary Gatz, you even have homework. We have invited, I talked to Jenny a couple of times, and we've invited you to come be on the stage with us as our Secretary of Transportation, and we really want to honor you in that capacity as well. So on Aero Day, there's lots of things going on. We have a career fair, and so people are bringing their HR. We have over 80 exhibitors. I cut it off at 67, and now we're at 80. So we're...
It's a hard cutoff.
Yes. The reason why I needed money from the commission this morning is because the Capitol provides 80 tables free to people within the Capitol and 400 chairs, and I'm out of tables. So we are renting tables with that money. That is what that goes to. Just to speak to that, just really quickly, you are not permitted to have an event in the Capitol where you profit. That's a Capitol rule, and that's through OMES. And so we do charge a fee to come to the Capitol of $10. That pays for your food, and then that is a supplemented amount. We don't even make, we pay $12.50 per person to feed. And so we have plenty of community partners, and I just cannot thank them enough. A lot of them are sitting here, and Kelly Fincannon was my first one, and it just means so much.
Sandra, who are our partner sponsors for?
Oh, gosh. KSA and Olson, and I'm not going to remember them all. We have a lot of in-kind. Embry Riddle's helping us. There's just so many people to thank, and Acorn Growth and Intrust Bank is helping us, and Jones PR has helped us, and the FAA Monroney Center helped us with our new logo, and it's just been really a team effort, and I can't tell you all the outpouring of support that's come from the aviation and aerospace community. Commissioners, you are our aviation ambassadors on that day. We ask you to come to the Capitol. You will be given homework and an assignment, and you'll be working with Director Byrd and Grayson on the aviation and aerospace ambassadors teams. And if you're not going to be there, we will miss you. But it is all hands on the rotunda, please. So also in your packet, Commissioners, there is an events list. There's lots of events happening in the state. We want you to be able to go through that as well. And I would yield for any questions and anything that I might not have covered.
Sandra, tell them about the annual report, which you've included in the
Oh,
packet.
okay.
which-
The annual report to the governor is required, and it is in your packet. And it's kind of old information. It goes from July of 17 to July of 18. So, you'll see that the chairmans have not changed yet, so that's why that is that way. So it's FY 18. And there's plenty of information, and we use that also as a teaching tool for people about the agency. That will be delivered to all 149 members of the House and Senate, and as well as the governor and lieutenant governor. I'm done.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you, Sandra.
okay, number 11.
What about the art contest?
Yes, sir. The Aviation Art Contest, we had a great year this year. We had about 1,220 entries, and we had a day where we had 8 celebrity judges, Catherine, 9? There was a lot. We had a lot of celebrity judges this year, and Commissioner Ritz was from our commission. She represented the commission, and Commissioner Ritz, do you want to talk about that for just 2 moments?
A lot of artwork.
Yeah.
But it was amazing from first grade on, how they really captured the essence. And we got pretty picky in the scoring, because we wanted to make sure it wasn't just good artwork, but the whole concept of vision and dreaming, and it was well done.
Catherine and Jen help us administer that, and I sort of leave the room because I have my own ideas about what would look best in the calendar, and so we want it to be a fair contest. Yes, and we want it to be fair, and so Catherine created a rubric for us, and they help administer that as well. So,
Sandra also did something I thought was excellent. This year, we involved a legislator, Representative Tammy West, and I think she was really excited about doing it, and she stayed as long as she could, and I think engaged. Wouldn't you say, Commissioner Ritz? Yeah.
okay, stand for any questions on that. We have not had our ceremony yet. The Governor's Blue Room is under construction. I'm having a little difficulty finding a room in the Capitol, but if I can't, I'm gonna maybe take it to an airport somewhere, Christy Slater. So,
Any other events?
I'm sorry? We'll sponsor it, okay, in
In
Guyman? Okay.
You know where Guyman is, Sandra?
Actually, Commissioner Ray, we did have winners from Guyman. Yes, we did.
Just north of Texas.
Have you been to Guyman?
I am going to Guyman's very soon.
Okay, I just want to know. Now, it's western Oklahoma,
She-
Sandra. That's real western Oklahoma.
Please
She
don't
was
pick
a little,
on me.
she was
No.
a little disheartened by the fact there's no Four Seasons there, so, Commissioner.
There's a one season.
That's what I tell her.
Yes, the
one season.
Ritz-Carlton in Guyman is waiting for me, so.
Try
Jen-
that. Go ahead and Google that, too.
Jen and I are actually going to go, and Commissioner Ray has invited us to visit his cow farm place.
Well, you can come to Bartlesville and visit mine.
Okay.
All right, there you go.
Can
Any
I-
other events you want to highlight,
Can
Sandra?
I please go?
Are you done?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Director Byrd, any remarks?
Only 2, Mr. Chairman. Happy to have with us today, I think first, but an old friend, Craig Smith. Craig, you still here? Craig's now the Public Affairs Liaison at Monroney Aeronautical Center, MMAC, and works for Director Coppage and Deputy Director O'Connor. So glad to have Craig with us, and glad he's still around. We knew he would be. Was formerly with Congressman Russell, and before that Senator Coburn, and Craig is a stabilizing force. He's been with us for years. That's good. He's going to be at FAA. And then this is our last meeting today. Last meeting that Catherine will be with us as an employee, as she's leaving at the end of the month. So we appreciate Catherine's years of service, and we will miss her. But she has some great upcoming events, and I don't blame her one bit. She's pretty excited about those. So, Catherine, we'll miss you. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Vic. Sandra, next meeting, when is that? May 8th? May 8th, that's what the next meeting is. And is there any new business that we could not see? If not, meeting's adjourned.